Hi everyone. Today's book is called Sisi and the Cassowary by Arone, Raymond, Meeks. I especially love the illustrations in this book. Let's see what animals you can find. Sisi and the Cassowary. Long ago, when the world was new, a girl called CeCe lived with her tribe in a rainforest close to an ocean reef. Every morning, she and her mothers and her sisters went inland to the waterfall to bathe and refresh themselves for the day. CeCe and her sisters slipped from the bank and away from the watchful eyes of their mothers. There was a sandbar on the far side of the waterhole. CeCe could see a long-necked tortoise bathing on a log in the sun. "Let's see if we can catch the tortoise," CeCe said. But her sisters were too busy diving and splashing in the cool water. CeCe took a deep breath and dived under. She saw fish and snakes and eels. When she surfaced, she saw something large floating in the water. That must be a log, she thought. But suddenly, it swished a long tail. It was a crocodile. CeCe dived and swam away as fast as she could. She reached the water's edge with her lungs bursting for air and her arms aching. As CeCe pulled herself onto the bank, she noticed that her sisters and mothers had disappeared. "Cooey!" she shouted. "Where are you?" There was no reply. "Cooey!" she shouted again, but all she could hear was the calling of birds and the sound of wind rustling through the canopy above. CeCe walked along the banks, looking for the spot where she and her sisters had been playing. But everything looked different. The trees, the rocks, even the waterfall. CeCe realized she was lost. What would my mothers do? CeCe asked herself. I know. They would light a fire to make smoke. She remembered how her father had taught her to gather dry paper bark and 2 dry sticks, and she began to make a fire. She twirled one stick into the other and blew on them until they became hot. First a curl of smoke appeared, then a few sparks, and at last a tiny flame. CeCe placed some fine twigs on top to make a blaze. This smoke should attract someone's attention, she thought as she waited. Suddenly, a small, bright blueberry hit CeCe on the head. As she reached to pick it up, a boy sprang from the bushes and grabbed it. "Who are you?" CeCe asked. "And why did you do that?" "I live here," the boy replied. "My name is Bindi. I know many of the fruit trees in the forest, and these are my berries." "Then maybe you know the way to the waterfall," said CeCe. "I've been separated from my family, and I am lost." I could help you, said Bindi. But my father sent me to gather berries, and if I don't find enough before nightfall, I won't be able to return home. If you show me the way, said CeCe, I will help you gather enough fruit. If we work together, we will both get back to our families before night. The boy agreed, and CeCe made a basket out of bark. Together they wandered along the riverbanks, collecting bright blueberries until the sun had touched the edge of the rainforest canopy. We should start back, said CeCe as she gathered a last handful. My mothers will be worried. But when she turned to the boy, he had disappeared. Cooey, she shouted. Cooey, is anybody there? There was no reply. It was almost dark. CeCe was lost and far from home, and Bindi had let her down. Suddenly, a huge blue and purple bird strutted from the bush. CeCe jumped back as it started towards her. But when she looked into its eyes, she thought she saw someone she recognized. Could it be? She wondered, remembering Bindi's dark eyes. The bird put its long neck against CeCe, nudging her to climb astride its back. Then they set off through the forest. CeCe clung to the bird's dark feathers as it strode through dense vegetation and crossed countless streams. Under its powerful clawed feet, the path was blue with berries. Look at the blueberries. After some time, CeCe heard the sound of splashing water. They had reached the waterfall at last. The bird stopped, stretching its long neck down to peck at the berries. CeCe slid from its back and reached to gather some berries too. When she looked up again, the bird had run away into the bush. There he is, running away. CeCe heard someone calling her. It was her mother, searching for CeCe by the banks of the waterhole. They ran to each other, and CeCe began to tell about the boy, the berries, and the bird. I will show you the bird's footprints, CeCe said. But when she looked, all she could see were the footprints of a boy. Her mother lifted CeCe onto her shoulders and headed back to the campsite by the reef. On the way, CeCe's mother told the story of the cassowary and of how it knew its way through the forest because of the quandong tree and its bright blue berries. Did you spot any animals? Hope you like the book.